Good day, viewers. The primary purpose of this video today is to illustrate to you how easy it is to perform and to properly install a Boyesen SuperCooler that I have here in my left hand. You can do this in the comfort of your own garage, carport, workshop. It's pretty simple to do. Please feel free to view the video I did on the intro to a Boyesen SuperCooler and explain some of the benefits of the Boyesen SuperCooler and how it'll help you win the war on heat. I'll put a link down in the description below also for you for that video. Please note that some machines can vary from the current outline that we do here today, and so make sure you got the appropriate service manual for your model bike. The service manual also provides you with detailed information pertaining to proper coolant that's required for your machine, any torque values for fasteners, etc. One thing, of course, caution you on is do not work on a hot engine. The exhaust pipe gets extremely hot. The engine coolant that we're going to be draining from the water pump housing itself, here's the drain screws, could be extremely hot. So do not work on a hot engine. Make sure you give the engine and the coolant plenty of time, or ample amount of time to cool down. I prefer to do this just the next day after riding the bike or something. Stone cold engine. The bike that we're going to use here today is a 2008 WR450F. Okay. The installation of this Boyesen SuperCooler on this bike will be very similar to that of the YZ450F. Okay, this video should cover the 2007 to 2011 WR450. Should also cover the 2006 to 2009 YZ450F. May cover a little bit older models. Pretty straightforward process. I know that some of the newer YZs require you to remove this outer engine cover to replace the water impeller, so just make sure you got the appropriate service manual for the bike that you're working on. Okay, a couple of things that we got to do before we get started is, one, we want to remove the skid plate. You can see I got the skid plate removed here. Normally a skid plate, has a water pump guard here that would allow you protection of the water pump, but in this case we got to remove it so we can just access the water pump. Of course, make sure you got your bike on a suitable bike stand to support the bike upright. And one of the next steps that we want to do is we're going to remove the engine exhaust system. Okay, so let's get started with that. I have already kind of come in here and just broke these screws loose just to try to help speed things up, but we're going to get this exhaust system off. Some bikes you can do this job without removing the exhaust or the header on a 4-stroke. Some bikes you're not going to be able to, but in most all cases it makes it easier to perform the repair, or not the repair, but the replacement of the water pump housing and impeller. Just to gains you a lot more access to the water pump and these hoses that are tucked in here behind there. So we're going to remove this. Definitely most of your 2-strokes, you're going to have to remove the 2-stroke expansion chamber to gain access to the water pump. So there we go. So we got the head pipe off. I'm going to put these fasteners just back where they went in their original spot. Help keep track of them. Now, one thing you might want to do is you want to locate the coolant drain screw on your water pump housing. Here's our water pump housing. Okay, there's a couple of fasteners to hold the housing on to this outer engine cover, but the drain screw will have a copper washer behind it. Okay, so that is your coolant drain screw. So locate that. It's always best to make sure that you have some shop towels. I usually put a couple underneath the bike on the stand. You might want to lay some out on the shop floor. No matter how many times I've done this job, there usually seems to be sometimes a little bit of coolant that splashes or gets spilled out onto the ground. So one thing we want to do is we want to make sure you have a clean container, because what I want to do is I'm going to take the fluid, the coolant that I drain out of here, and actually going to reuse it. Now if your coolant is old, in need of service or replaced, this would be a good time to put some new coolant in. So we're going to keep this coolant and reuse it in the bike. So what I want to do, I've located the drain screw. It's an 8mm screw or bolt. Come on out of there. Okay, so now we're draining the coolant. Now, you might want to reach up and take the radiator cap and lightly twist it, you know, just to undo the radiator cap, and that'll vent the system. And when you do that, get prepared, because a lot more coolant's going to come out, just as you've seen there. So once again, once you pull the drain screw out, and once you reach up and undo the radiator cap and vent the system, you're going to see a whole lot more coolant start to discharge. So you got to be prepared for that. So we're going to let this drain and drip down. The coolant likes to hide in several little cavities and crevices inside the cooling system and the water pump housing. So you may not get every bit of the coolant out, of course, but we're going to let that drip down. I'm going to put the drain screw back in, just for a moment anyways. I'm just going to put that back in just for a second to keep from getting coolant everywhere while I get this coolant jug, set it down, get it out of the way. I'm going to ease this down on the ground. Let's go ahead and get this tightened up. Just snug it up for the moment. Okay, next we're going to take some of these clamps loose. We got to remove this cooling pipe. So we're going to take these clamps loose. These takes a 6mm. Most bikes it's a little 6mm fastener. We're going to remove those. See a little dirt's in that one. Okay, now that we got those loose, make sure we got them. Yeah, they're pretty good loose. Okay, we're going to remove the, there's a small little flange mounted bolt here that's retaining this pipe. We're just going to get that removed. Okay, now we're going to remove the fasteners holding the water pump housing on. Now on some bikes you're going to have different length of bolts, so make sure you put them back where they come from. Which in this bike here, as you can see, all three of those are the same length. And of course, we talked about the drain screw. A little more coolant wanting to come out. We talked about the drain screw having the copper washer on it. So, okay, we got those removed. Okay, we got all the screws out. We got the drain bolt out. This thing should just be pretty loose. We got our fasteners loose on our clamps. We're going to pull this back. You can see here's the, let me get my hand out of the way. Here's our water impeller. Okay, we're going to try to get these hoses off of this. Let's go ahead and get the pump off of this, or the housing off of the, there's our OEM housing. Uses an O-ring to seal with. There's little alignment pins. Want to make sure that you don't lose those. One here's in the housing, one still in the case. One thing you want to do, once you get this cooling pipe off, there's an O-ring on here that goes down and seals into the OEM housing and will be used on the Boyesen SuperCooler housing. But go ahead and you can see all the dirt and grime, so you definitely want to get that cleaned up. Okay, so now we got the OEM housing off, and now we're ready to remove the OEM impeller. A lot of bikes are 12 millimeter. This one happens to be, and usually keeping the bike in gear and using that combined with the engine's compression is usually enough to hold the rotating components in the motor to allow you to loosen this impeller. So we're gonna see if we can snap this thing loose, which we did. Now once we remove this, there's going to be a washer behind here. It's very important to keep track of that. Don't lose it. You're going to need it. Right there it is, actually stuck on the back of the impeller. So you're going to take this washer. I'm just going to put it right back on the shaft. Here's our OEM impeller. And here's our Boyesen impeller. You can kind of see the differences. See the height of the blades here versus this is OEM, this is Boyesen. You can see the difference in the height of the blades. You can see the difference in the blade designs. The Boyesen definitely has a lot more surface area. It's going to move a lot more coolant and be a whole lot more efficient. So let's go ahead and get that installed. So we got our washer on. Just going to get this thing started on the threads on the impeller shaft. There we go. Okay, now that we got the Boyesen SuperCooler impeller installed and kind of snugged up, we're just going to check the torque. We're going to put a torque wrench on it. The spec for this model is like 10 foot-pounds, so there we go. So we got the impeller torqued. Also note that we have our alignment pins installed. Make sure we got those pushed all the way in, and we got our alignment pins installed. Next, what we've done, we took the O-ring out of the OEM housing and we placed it inside the Boyesen housing. Some bikes use a gasket. Most bikes have went to the O-ring, and this O-ring is really reusable as long as you don't damage it or tear it. But if you got a gasket style water pump cover, most likely the gasket was destroyed when you removed the water pump housing, so you'll need a new one. Now we're going to take and install the cooling pipe. We're going to install it in the Boyesen housing. I like to put just a tad bit of grease on that O-ring to help it slide in, to keep it from tearing or grabbing the sides of the wall. So we're just going to gently push that down in there. We're going to line up our bolt hole there on that flange. Let's go ahead and get that started in there. Now that we have the cooling pipe attached, we've tightened up the little flange bolt. We'll be ready to install the Boyesen SuperCooler housing. We got the O-ring in place. A lot of times these hoses will fight with you during installation, so we're going to try to work with these a little bit. Maybe just install one of them currently and then push the other one on once we get the housing set. So you just have to have some patience. There we go. So now we got it set up here. We're going to take our fasteners. Just going to go ahead and get these kind of started with our fingers. And we want to kind of snug them all up together. Don't want to torque anything down on one side without doing the other. So we're going to do them all kind of equally. Just keep from damaging anything or warping the housing. I'm just going to snug them up. Everything's good and snug there. Okay, now that we got the housing on, we got all of our fasteners just lightly snugged up. We're going to take a torque wrench and we're just going to torque these to the proper specs, which is 7.2 foot-pounds for this particular model. Okay, now once we got the housing bolts torqued, we would just want to come over here and we're just going to gently snug up these cooling hoses once we got them all installed. We don't want to over tighten the clamp, but we definitely want to snug it up, make sure we get it the hose and the fitting nice tight seal. Well, and there it is, guys, a easy to install cooling system performance upgrade, Boyesen SuperCooler. Only thing remaining now would be to put the head pipe back on and properly fill the cooling system and install the skid plate or anything else that you had to remove. But you can see that that was pretty simple. Make sure you visit boyesen.com today and select a SuperCooler for your bike and win the war on heat.